Hey guys, we're finally back. I am so excited to be making another video because it has been a drought for the last few months because I have been back at school. I've been very busy with work, school, keeping my life going. So that's why there has not been a video since I don't even want to know when. So we're back and I'm so excited. I have so many content ideas and so many videos that I want to get back. I want to thank you all so much for 5,000 subscribers. That means the world to me. I'm so glad there's so many new faces here and then I get to just like share my ideas and we all just get to have like wonderful, amazing discussions because that is truly what my YouTube channel is for. I just want to talk about things. I want to share things, yada, yada, yada. And as you can see, we're in a new location. This is my college house. I have my own room now. I have like my own space to like fully decorate. I'm living with two roommates. They are both so amazing. They're like two of my closest friends. And life has been good. It's been hectic. It's been busy. It's been cold and dreary and rainy all day here. But we're getting into the winter time. But before winter, there is Thanksgiving, the very remainings of fall, right before we get into like that Christmas time. And I kind of wanted to talk about Thanksgiving and also just what it means and as well as the history behind it and how we've kind of gotten this warped perspective of it. So let's just do it. Thanksgiving has been trademarked as a time to come together with friends and family and share a big old feast, as well as recognize what we are thankful for, hence the Thanksgiving. It is celebrated each year on the fourth Thursday of November, and I can't be the only one who remembers just like various ways that I've kind of celebrated it over the years. In elementary school, I remember donning headdresses with feathers bought from like Michael's or Hobby Lobby, and then wearing like these like paper bags as like Native American wear, while other classmates dressed up as pilgrims, and this was just a very obvious example of cultural appropriation. And of course, every year spending a good few hours in the kitchen helping my parents make Thanksgiving dinner, like rolls, casserole, green beans, green bean casserole, sweet potatoes, turkey, of course, or for me, the last few years it has been nut roast because I'm a vegetarian. Vegetarians, make some noise in the chat. The crowd went wild. Yet, when celebrating this holiday, historical truth seems to kind of go out the window, as it is co-opted for a sugar-coated version of the actual story. It is mythologized and steeped in tradition. We're all kind of aware of the basic story that is oftentimes presented to children or kids in like elementary school. That a local Native American tribe, though the actual tribe is usually rarely mentioned or just completely left out of the story, welcomes the courageous, exploring, venturing pilgrims who left persecution back in England. And they have a celebratory feast. But anyone who has kind of dug a little bit deeper into this myth and really looked at the actual history behind it knows that this is not the story at all. And that is just that. It's a story riddled with historical inaccuracies. It smooths over and conceals the truth. The erasure and sugarcoating of European colonization and ethnic cleansing of the Native American population here in North America, as well as a lot of other places along this continent, is all used as a justification for why we all live on stolen land. And this is really the reason that I wanted to make this video, especially with Thanksgiving coming up. Hopefully this video is posted on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving so that, you know, we can all kind of take a little history lesson here. And I really just want to focus on bringing truth to the story. I know I am by far not the first person to ever make a video or like do any research about this topic. It is well researched. Everyone has done it. I mean, listen to Indigenous voices, listen to Indigenous communities. They've been saying this stuff for years. I just really wanted to just like compile a lot of just like the research that I had done and make a video about it because I wanted to, and this is a topic that I think is really important to talk about. I also would really like to mention before we get into it that I will be talking about a lot of really tough and sometimes hard to hear about topics such as genocide and ethnic cleansing and like mass murder, very awful topics that unfortunately I will not be censoring them because I do think that to include the whole truth is to do it, but I will be doing it in a very obviously respectful manner. So just know that those topics will be covered and I will try to do my best with it. And of course, if any of this information is wrong or you see that like I'm like have gotten some facts incorrect, please let me know. My comments are always open for places of discussion. So please just like comment down below if I got anything wrong or if there's something you want to add. I would like to get it as accurate as I can. And of course, there's probably a chance that something along here isn't like perfectly 100% accurate. But before I jump straight into the history, I just kind of wanted to touch upon what revisionist history is, because that's kind of what I'm doing here. Not really. As I said before, revisionist history has been done way before. I'm not like the first person to do this, since it's kind of how we as people in the present and how we will shape the people's perception of the past in the future. That was a lot of words. Keep with me. Revisionist history is a term often loaded with political and ideological baggage and can be broadly defined as the reinterpretation of accepted historical accounts. It involves critically examining prevailing narratives, questioning established facts, and proposing alternative explanations based on new evidence or perspectives. This is all not to say that the truth behind Thanksgiving and US colonization is not out there. As I've said, like, I am not saying as if I pulled these facts out of thin air that like I have rediscovered them, because I haven't. I'm literally like quoting sources and like talking about where I've read this stuff from. And it has obviously been discussed by Indigenous communities across the US for years and years. But in our everyday lives and in kind of this myth that we've created around Thanksgiving, this history goes kind of forgotten, and it is often kind of covered up and disregarded, because the reality is that it was brutal and it was violent, and people, mostly white people, would rather forget that than, memorialize it. This version that we kind of retell ourselves every year is a sanitized version, a fairy tale. And that is why revisionist history is so important. It helps us uncover the past and present the actual facts of what happened without kind of this bias from who the victors were. We all kind of know the saying of history was written by the victors, which is a prime example of how we view American history as this kind of beautifulness of manifest destiny and this kind of claiming of land that was promised to us, when in reality it was stolen from people, it was taken, it was colonized. So I'm making this video for the sake of re-examining this history and kind of just presenting the facts and showing that these past interpretations that a lot of people have had are steeped in usually white supremacy, or this idea that the European colonizers came and kind of took what they deserved, when in reality they stole and they killed and they committed a genocide. So now let's start from the beginning with the Indigenous people whose land we live on. In Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz's novel An Indigenous People's History of the United States, she challenges the traditional narratives around the formation of the United States, highlighting the impact of settler colonization and genocide. In Chapter 1, Follow the Corn, she describes the complex and long-standing history that Indigenous communities had with the land and one another, as well as the movement different groups took across the continent. I really highly recommend reading this book. I had to read the introduction and the first chapter for my immigration class that I'm taking this quarter, and it was very insightful and really just kind of rewires your brain into how we view the United States, especially like the formation of it. She then goes on to depict the deep and long-standing history of Native Americans in North America, something which is often glossed over when talking about European expeditions to the United States or North America at the time, because it's kind of a way of covering up that past and showing that they just came here and took the land that was open and free, when in reality there were people living there that they had to kill and move in order to take that land. There's of course so much rich history here about the Indigenous communities that were here in North America before European colonization, and I would love to really get into it, but that is a lot of knowledge and a lot of stuff that I just have not researched, and I really want to, and I will, but I couldn't really summarize in this one video because Indigenous people are not monolithic. There are so many different tribes, different groups, different religions, etc., and I don't want to mess any of that up. So I encourage you to go look at that, research it. I certainly am going to, but I just want to kind of just focus on how this Thanksgiving myth was kind of made and solidified. So the conversation around who kind of got to North America or who interacted with Indigenous people of North America first is kind of up in the air, and even when I was researching this, there's really no clear answer. It's very some people think this, some people think that, but I'm just kind of going to go off of what I remember from classes that I've taken, for example, my American Ethnic Studies class, from other classes such as my Sagas of the Vikings class, which is interesting how this all plays into this. There is evidence of this map that the Chinese had made during a year that I can't remember. And it seems to depict North America, which leads many to believe that the Chinese were the first to kind of make contact with Native Americans. And this was many, many years before any Europeans were. And then as it is for Europeans, it is actually the Norse Vikings who made contact before any of like Spain, England, etc. did. Before Columbus, way before Columbus. In the sagas of the Greenlanders, which I did have to read for my class, one, they have an expedition led by Leif Erikson, who comes across this place that they call Vinland around the year 1000. And it is thought to be northeastern Canada and is now known as Newfoundland Island. The Norse did end up leaving this place, but there is a settlement that I think was found and has been like excavated. And then of course came the later European settlers in the 15th century, with one of the most infamous being Christopher Columbus himself. In 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, arrived on the island of San Salvador, thinking that he had made his way to the islands of the East Indies. Was there a lot going on up there? Who really knows? Upon realizing that he had stumbled across a new land or undiscovered, it wasn't new, it wasn't undiscovered, it was just undiscovered for Europeans, even though technically the Norse had been there, so it wasn't. He kind of then began to consider other sources of like wealth and profit that he could take from this land rather than the East Indies that he had originally planned to travel to. He then traveled to the island of Hispaniola, where he came into contact with the Taino people. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I literally just watched a YouTube video on how to pronounce that, and there was like 4 different pronunciations for like British, American, etc., etc. So I'm hoping I got that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. Who, by the way, I learned this in my American Ethnic Studies class freshman year, that they were called the Taino people because Taino was what they were saying to the Spanish when they were like kind of coming up onto shore. It was actually like their form of greeting, but Columbus kind of heard that and was like, that must be their name. Once again, was there a whole lot going on up there? Doubtful. The Spanish crew then went on to, unfortunately, sexually assault a lot of the Taino women, and when the tribe fought back, they were brutally killed, and a lot of their leaders were captured and burnt alive. This violence persisted for many years, and up to 90% of the Taino people were killed. The spread of European diseases also played an impactful role in this, since because many Native Americans had not been able to build up immunity to a lot of European diseases, their immune systems were not ready for them, and so a lot of diseases such as smallpox, influenza, measles, and typhus really decimated a lot of these communities. What occurred here on the island of Hispaniola was a precursor to the extreme violence and ethnic cleansing that Native American populations across North America would face. On the island of Hispaniola, a genocide occurred. Following Spanish colonization, other European states quickly saw how profitable this was and wanted to get a piece of it for themselves. They were seeking land, natural resources, and just even a place that a lot of people wanted to go to escape their home countries, specifically if it was for like religious persecution. England, of course, wanted a piece in this, and they established their own presence in the New World. The first 2 colonies, Popham and Roanoke, failed, but the third, Jamestown, succeeded. Plymouth soon followed, founded in Massachusetts in 1620. I've actually visited Plymouth Rock, and it's incredibly underwhelming and very small, and I was kind of like, oh, that's it. Upon Plymouth's founding, the Wampanoag chief, Osama Quinn, offered the Europeans an entente for the purpose of forming an alliance, so that they could help protect them from their rivals, the Narragansetts. The Wampanoags had recently been decimated by an epidemic disease and were under threat by local rebels. This, however, was not the first meeting between the Wampanoags and the Pilgrims, as Europeans had previously raided the tribe for slaves. At least 2 or more Wampanoags at the time that Plymouth was there already knew how to speak English and had been to England and back when the Pilgrims arrived. For 50 years, this alliance between the English settlers and the Wampanoags was tested by colonial land expansion, the spread of disease, and the exploitation of resources on Wampanoag land, and thus tensions rose. This ignited into King Philip's War, or the Great Narragansett War. Whether it was a war or more of a mass slaughter, where the Wampanoags were decimated and the balance of power was shifted in favor of the European settlers. So how then did we end up with this Thanksgiving feast as a holiday? How did that part of the story come in? For quite a long time, English people actually had been celebrating Thanksgiving. that didn't involve feasting and instead involved prayer, fasting, and supplication to God. In 1769, a group of Pilgrim descendants who lived in Plymouth who felt that their cultural authority was slipping away as New England became less relevant within the colonies and the new republic. So, to increase tourism, they started to plant the seeds that the Pilgrims were the fathers of America and that it all started in Plymouth. What really solidified Thanksgiving as what it is today was when Reverend Alexander Young included a footnote that read, "This was the first Thanksgiving, the great festival of New England." People picked this idea, and it gained popularity, and Abraham Lincoln was actually the one to declare it a holiday during the Civil War in order to foster unity. It really gained a lot of purchase in the 19th century when there was a lot of anxiety and agitation over immigration, especially that of European Catholics and Jews. The Protestants wanted to assert cultural authority over newcomers. They did this by creating this national founding myth around the Pilgrims and that the Native Americans invited them to take over the land. The racial politics within the 19th century also played a really large role because as the Indian Wars were coming to an end, it was a perfect time to convince everyone that Native Americans had peacefully handed over their land and resources since people were no longer reading accounts on a regular basis about the atrocious violence that Native Americans were facing. Also, as David Silverman described, during Reconstruction, that Thanksgiving myth allowed New Englanders to create this idea that bloodless colonization in their region was the origin of the country, having nothing to do with the Indian Wars and slavery. Americans could feel good about their colonial past without having to confront the really dark characteristics of it. The violence and exploitation that the Wampanoags faced at the hands of European settlers was not an individual occurrence, but rather a shared horror that all Indigenous tribes faced. Over the span of 100 years across South, Central, and North America, European settlers killed 56 million Indigenous people, which is around 90 to 95% of the total population. After the United States was established, mass displacement and exploitative labor was enforced, and Native culture was suppressed through boarding schools that prohibited any cultural practices. Only 2% of the land in the US is owned by recognized Indigenous tribes, whereas all the land was once theirs. To this day, murder, rape, and violent crimes are the highest for Native Americans, with there being so many missing and murdered Indigenous people, specifically women. All of this, and yet every year, we still celebrate Thanksgiving without truly understanding the history behind this holiday. Our country still silences Indigenous voices and experiences and refuses in any way to acknowledge the atrocities that it is committed against these people. In her article, Unmasking Thanksgiving, The True History Behind the Holiday in Indigenous Perspectives, Lori Baker states that the answer as to why Indigenous voices are drowned out and their perspectives about anything, including Thanksgiving as a holiday, lie in the enduring legacy of colonization. Colonizers didn't just take land, they systematically erased the cultures, traditions, and voices of Indigenous people. This silencing continues today, embedded within government and societal structures that often disregard or suppress Indigenous narratives. So this Thanksgiving, I urge everyone to do more research, learn more about Thanksgiving, dive deeper into this myth, and really uncover anything else, because I for sure did not cover everything. And if you live in America, learn more about the tribe whose land you inhabit. Read a book written by an Indigenous author, watch a documentary. Educate yourself in any way that you can. And also, if you live outside of America, there is a chance that you probably also live on places that were Indigenous. Spread awareness, advocate for Indigenous communities, raise awareness about the fact of missing and murdered Indigenous women. Just talk about it. Because if we all collectively start to realize what this holiday really revolves around, we can maybe shift the perspective and start to actually acknowledge how wronged the Native Americans in America have been by the United States and European colonization. This country was founded upon settler colonialism. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you've made it this far, it would be amazing if you could leave a like, subscribe, comment, the whole shebang. And I just really thank you for watching my videos. If you are a newcomer, thank you so much. I really hope this is kind of giving you a taste of what I like to talk about. And just so you guys know, I got this one comment on one of my, I think it was one of my reels is not the word, shorts is YouTube, one of my shorts, because I was just having a hard time making like full length content like this for YouTube, so I was kind of making some like shorter shorts, and one of them was just like a fit check that I did because I was like, you know what, this outfit's kind of cool, let me share it. I did share it, and someone commented this, and it was like, this channel is so confusing because like one day it's like thoughtful video essays, the next day it's like a fit check and modeling. My response to it was like, I contain multitudes. Where yeah, I always like to try something new. I like to do video essays like this, but I also sometimes like to just like put on a cute fit and make like a fit check video. So I do a lot of different things. I never have like a set thing that I always do. And this maybe is a little bit different than the other videos I've made. And I'm sure that I will continue to keep making videos that kind of like break out from this mold. Also, I really apologize that the camera's been shaky. It's like sitting on top of this like cardboard box that is like kind of about to fall apart, it looks like. So that's probably why it's been like boing. So I apologize about that. And I hope I can maybe fix that in editing. If not, sorry. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. This really means the world to me, and I will try to get this out before Thanksgiving. And then I do have a lot of content that I do want to make, and a lot of it will probably be filmed and edited over winter break just because that's when I'm not in school. So expect more content out of me around then. But thank you so much for watching. Again, this is for like the 4th time I've thanked you for watching. And I really hope you've enjoyed this video and that you stay tuned for what I have to come. So I love you. I hope you have an amazing day or night or whatever time of day it is. And I will see you in my next video. Whoa. Farewell.